Oh, hello there. I'm Bilchan.
I'm Nimikung.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you. Chapter 7, Section 3 of A Tale of Two Cities, Book the Second, Golden Thread.
As.
Ah.
A Tale of Two Cities, Book the Second, Golden Thread. Charles Dickens. Chapter 7, Section 3. The carriage dashed through streets and swept round corners, with women screaming before it, and men clutching each other and clutching children out of its way. At last, swooping at a street corner by a fountain, one of its wheels came to a sickening little jolt, and there was a loud cry from a number of voices, and the horses reared and plunged. But for the latter inconvenience, the carriage probably would not have stopped. Carriages were often known to drive on and leave their wounded behind. And why not? But the frightened valet had got down in a hurry, and there were 20 hens at the horses' bridles. What has gone wrong? Said Monsieur, calmly looking out of the horses, and had laid it on the basement of the fountain, and was down in the mud and wet, howling over it like a wild animal. Pardon, Monsieur the Marquis, said a ragged and submissive man. Why does he make that abominable noise? Excuse me. The fountain was a little removed, for the street opened, where it was, into a space some 10 or 12 yards square. As the tall man suddenly got up from the ground and came running at the carriage, Monsieur the Marquis clapped his hand for an instant on his sword hilt. Colt, shrieked the man, in wild desperation, extending both arms at their length above his head and staring at him. The people closed round and looked at Monsieur the Marquis. Eagerness. There was no visible menacing or anger. Neither did the people say anything. After the first cry, they had been silent, and they remained so. The voice of the submissive man who had spoken was flat and tame in its extreme submission. Monsieur the Marquis ran his eyes over them all, as if they had been rats come out of their holes. He took out his purse. It is extraordinary to me, said he, that you people cannot take care of yourselves and your children. One or the other of you is forever in the way. How do I know what injury you have done my horses? See. He threw out a gold coin for the valet to pick up, as if the tall man called out again with the most unearthly cry. He was arrested by the quick arrival of another man, for whom the rest made way. On seeing him, the miserable creature fell upon his shoulder, sobbing and crying, and pointing to the fountain, where some woman was stooping over the motionless bundle and moving gently about it. They were silent, however, as the men. I know all. I know all, said the last comer. Be a brave man, my Gaspard. It is better for the poor little plaything to die so than to live. It has died in a moment without pain. You are a philosopher. You there, said the Marquis, smiling. Monsieur the Marquis, pick up that. Philosopher inventor of wine, said the Marquis, throwing him another gold coin. And spend it as you will. The horse is there. Without deigning to look at the assemblage a second time, Monsieur the Marquis leaned back in his seat, broke some coming thing, and had paid for it, and could afford to pay for it, when his ease was suddenly disturbed by a coin flying into his carriage, and ringing on its floor. Hold, said Monsieur the Marquis. Hold the horses. He looked to the spot where Defarge, the vendor of wine, had stood a moment before, but the wretched father was grovelling on his face on the pavement in that spot, and the figure that stood beside him was the figure of a dark stout woman. "Idin, you dogs," said the Marquis, but smoothly, and with an unchanged front, except as to the spots on his nose. "I would ride over any of you very willingly, and exterminate you from the earth, if I knew which rascal threw out the carriage, and if that brigand were sufficiently near it." So cowed was their condition, that, within the law and beyond it, that not a voice, or a hand, or even an eye was raised among the men. Not one. But the woman who stood knitting looked up steadily, and looked the Marquis in the face. It was not for his dignity to notice it. His contemptuousness passed over her, and over all the other rats, and he leaned back in his seat again. He was driven on, and other carriages came wheeling by in quick succession. The minister, the state projector, the farmer general, the doctor, the lawyer, the ecclesiastic, the grand opera, the comedy, the whole fancy ball in a bright continuous flow, came welling by. The rats had crept out of their holes to look on, and they remained looking on for hours, soldiers and police often passing between them and the spectacle, and making a barrier behind which they slunk, and through which they peeped. The father had long ago taken up his bundle and bidden himself away with it. The fountain, the one woman who had stood conspicuous, Edged, still knitted on with the steadfastness of fate. The water of the fountain ran, the swift river ran, the day ran into evening. So much life in the city ran into death according to rule. Time and tide waited for no man. The rats were sleeping close together in their dark holes again. The fancy ball was lighted up at supper. All things ran their course. To be continued.